panelists, Neil, Jason, Eric, and Dwight. Let's welcome them on stage. Let's give them a big round of applause and welcome them. All right. I'll now pass the stage to Joe. Over to you.
All right. Well, good morning. Welcome to everyone to the key trends for the coming 24 months. That's a big time period in the days of crypto world. That's like dog years, 7 years times 2, that's 14 years. So we have a panel of experts trying to make their view and forecast for the next 14 years in some ways. We hope to not only get the best out of our experts, but we also want to engage with you to see what other things you would like to talk about. My name is Joe Pan, your moderator and the editor of the Blockwind News, a leading voice around digital assets in the APAC area. In addition, I'm also the chief program curator for the upcoming Game On conference on October 22nd, if you are interested in more on the GameFi side. That is going to take place at the Soho House. I'm honored to join with some of the folks right here. So starting on my right, we have Neil Tan, founder of Artificial Intelligence Association of Hong Kong. And he's going to dive into a bit of the implication of artificial intelligence and generative AI for the future Web3 development. And then, of course, we have Jason, chairman of Hong Kong Digital Asset Association, bringing a rich background from finance, TradFi, to right here in the DeFi world as well. And then, of course, Eric's the growth leads at Qubic, is a seasoned leader over 16 years around design technology, and is passionate about leveraging technology with the solutions for a disruptive industry and for our new world in the Web3 area. Of course, Drake Van Diem, managing partners at BCW Group, combined his background in mechanical engineering or space engineering with extensive experience in investment banker. We have another TradFi person turning into the Web3. So let's start with defining some parameters. 24 months, that's a long time. So let's focus our talk around technology, innovation, trends, investment narratives, which is really important for those who are in the DeFi and investment and the VC area, and then last but not least in regulation, because that's what defines what Hong Kong's position today as the hub. So let's pose the question, and then folks with the opening, maybe we start with Drake and talk about what are the most significant technology innovation you anticipate will emerge in the next 24 months or the next 14 years.
I think the 14-year one's probably a bit too hard to predict, so I'll leave that one. But I guess on the 2-year front, I mean, some of the stuff that Duncan talked about is some of the way we see things. So we're like an enterprise solutions company and venture studio. So we work a lot with big corporates, building out technology in the Web3 space and some adjacencies around security and AI. And I think the big things that we're playing with as an infrastructure company that's basically betting all its selling of picks and shovels to bring on the next billion people is that when we're working with these corporates, a lot of the times we're hearing things around, if I want to build a use case, I don't have privacy or a bunch of other components attached to that. And so for us, the big things, or the big plays at least we're making over the next 24 months is interoperability. So we have a couple of interoperability bridges. We're one of the largest DVNs on a company called Layer Zero. We're also a data provider into Wormhole for a big corporate. And so we see like the unification of the blockchain space being pretty big on the interoperability front, but also on the ZK front, so zero knowledge proofs that sort of Duncan mentioned as well. And so there's a couple of reasons that that technology is pretty interesting. One is which it is an interoperability solution as well. So you obviously have the scaling factor that people are sort of building on top of layer ones through ZKs, but you can also get unified liquidity through these components as well. And so both of those being very interoperability focused component for us into the future. So moving assets between layer ones and moving assets between layer twos. And then on the privacy side, again, it's still in the ZK space, where we're seeing a bunch of corporates that we're working with doing a bunch of ZK stuff, where it's more about how we can build use cases around the privacy front. And so that's a focus for us for the next 2 years.
Very clear, two different fronts. Eric?
Yeah, so we're excited to be here, and thank you for inviting. So two things. I'll talk about the 14 months, and then, no, 24 months, and then 14 years. Yes, exactly. So what's exciting right now, blockchain and AI is intersecting a lot. So especially with Abelian is a quantum blockchain that, can't be, quantum computers can't crack it, right? Which is amazing, which we need it because computers are getting more and more faster, AI is getting more and more smarter. But what I see in the next 24 months is AI and blockchain will sort of merge together. And after 14 years, maybe we'll get replaced and don't have our jobs anymore. I think for many of us are worried that AI will take over the world, which, I do believe maybe, but, we got as, blockchain and Web3, we got to front run all these guys. So if you can invest into any AI projects now, you better do it because either ChatGPT is going to take over or we do lose our jobs. So that's my take.
We have a digital panels with AIs talking in discussions about AI. So Jason?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I think I'll just examine two sort of sectors of Web3 that I think might be more scalable or more feasible in the next 2 years or so. One is DeepIn. I think we all know what DeepIn is. People are like, there are so many protocols, projects working on it. I think the next 2 years it will be an advancement for that, and really the technology will catch up to really make it meaningful for combining the digital assets to physical infrastructure. I think it's really important, especially when these two combine. That's really the inflection point where Web 2 crowds can get into Web 3. Because right now a lot of people are on the fence, like a larger population, they don't know enough about Web 3 or whatnot. Largely because they feel like it's all digital. It's all digital assets and they don't feel comfortable with it. But once that transition or the collaboration really happens with the technology advancements, I think that'll be the threshold where mass adoption can be possible. So I think in the next 2 years, that leads to the next 14 years, will be very interesting. Number two, I think cybersecurity. Also, because so many large institutions, corporations are trying to get into Web3, but one thing is uncertainty of how secure they can be, right? So there's a lot of risks. Now, if cybersecurity and just the security in this space can be more enhanced, it will be much easier for these big guys to come in to make it more efficient. And when these big guys come in, we saw how like the BlackRocks of the world get into ETFs and stuff. It does make a big impact in the crypto market. So I think with that sense, with the risk, lowering of the risk can allow that to happen. I mean, one important part is I think that technology could hopefully transcend into some practical products, kind of like the Norton antivirus back in the good old Windows days. So that will be one of the norm in the future, hopefully. So.
Thank you, Jason. I'm glad you mentioned about mass adoptions and more on the retail front. We're going to get back to you on that. And Neil?
Yeah, so first off, thanks a lot, Duncan Wong, for inviting us and putting together this fantastic event. Congratulations to Abelian, putting together the first post-quantum blockchain day for Hong Kong. So, my view, I think I kind of break it down into sort of like high-level trends, if you will, right? I mean, I totally agree with what Tom said as far as like sovereign identity and use of different types of technologies for digital identification and so forth. I think that's key. I think inside of that, what can AI bring to the table in terms of that, management of that type of infrastructure as well as that type of data. That's also a very high level agreement in terms of how we go forward in terms of AI. Inside of Hong Kong, so talking specifically, so because outside of my role inside of the association, I'm also on the Web3 task force for Hong Kong under Financial Secretary Paul Chan. So we're looking at, ourselves in comparison to other jurisdictions all the time. And I would say innovation in of itself is one thing if you're doing unregulated activities. Obviously, you can do a lot of different things there. But inside of the confines of Hong Kong where you're talking about regulated, then innovation has to go hand in hand in terms of regulations and compliance, right? And so, we've seen it in terms of the development of the markets, in terms of the frameworks that have been coming out, virtual asset trading platform, going into stable coins, doing the sandbox, approved 3 different folks that go into the sandbox. Then you're going into OTC. How do we develop beyond that in the next 12 to 24 months? Looking at other areas such as, let's say, for example, derivatives or lending or leverage, all these types of other tools that a trading IFC would want inside of crypto or digital assets would be the direction that we would be seeing. Whether those things come into play in terms of actual law or legislation, that's another thing that the government decides. The task force provides guidance in terms of that. And we've done different things myself and also Joy Lam, if you know who she is. She used to work at Baker McKinsey. Now she's inside of Binance as the global head of regulatory. She's based here. We did heat maps of different geographies or other jurisdictions, and we said, okay, this is where we can improve. So ultimately, I think that Hong Kong is the place as far as going forward, the development of crypto and digital assets or virtual asset space. All the different tools will be coming into play in terms of the ability to trade, and that's in time. So it's just dependent upon how the government wants to introduce this type of legislation going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. So let's stay with that kind of regulation a bit. Obviously, I'm not sure if there's any government representative in the audience, but obviously we can only speak on what we would like to see. As an association guy, you've been at the forefront, not only fintech now, the AI part. What would you like to see as part of the regulation? What would be the best scenario you envision?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of the same, if you will. At the end of the day, if you're a trader and you go and compare different jurisdictions, whether it's talking about Singapore, Dubai, et cetera, all these different places, do they have enough of the tools to trade and make money, right? I mean, that's what the traders are looking for, is how to actually have the different access to the different product sets so that they can facilitate that. Ultimately, I would say it's a matter of time. It's just a whether or not that, when you talk about consumer protection and all those different things that come into play, how that's going to be introduced inside of the marketplace. So, yeah, I think ultimately we all want the same thing as far as Hong Kong is concerned, as far as for people that are here as financial advisors or financial institutions, to have a level playing field or all the tools available to us to facilitate that P&L, right? So.
Okay, how about Jason, you talk about mass adoption. So from your point of view, what kind of regulations, what would be the ideal scenario from your point of view?
I think there's really no perfect answer or solution for government or any jurisdiction to try to govern a new industry that is that much uncertainties. So I think the worst thing that a jurisdiction or a government can do is to not do anything in progressing, in try to search for better fits and keep changing and altering the regulations to try to fit what the society, what the world needs to do. So I think Hong Kong, since we're in Hong Kong, we talk a little bit more about Hong Kong. I think Hong Kong has taken good steps for the past few years to take advantage of the sort of the void, right, during the COVID times and all that. So we came out, made a statement saying we want to support the industry. We are all for it. Now, the fine details of the regulations, we can have another debate about that. But I think at least we're trying to make something happen, try to make a stamp that Hong Kong can be, a Web3 hub. If not globally, at least in Asia. So I think that's important, because if we keep things, stay at stalemate, there'll be other bigger problems that will happen. Kind of like, traditionally the social problems like 民生 or 民生问题, right? So I think with technology advancement, I think that's what we need.
All right. turning to definitely Eric, and then Dwight, we would like to get your point of view on the corporate side, what some of the problem they're facing. So Eric first.
So for blockchain or AI?
Either one is
Okay,
what,
so-
more from the regulation technology.
Okay, so
what's the best scenario?
regulation-wise, if we want to invest into different blockchains besides like Bitcoin and Ethereum in Hong Kong, it's very difficult. Especially if you want to invest into maybe Abelian, in the tokens, it's hard in Hong Kong. Same thing for any other small chains upcoming chains like Ton, and there's other ones like Cardano, and even for us, Qubic ecosystem is hard. So, regulators are trying to protect citizens, from they're losing a lot of money maybe, perhaps because, crypto is volatility. But also there's other things that protect us, like technologies too, right? So I'm talking from an AI perspective. AI is not fair. ChatGPT doesn't actually, and Gemini is not regularly available for everyone to use in Hong Kong. And even countries in Africa and Russia, they can't use ChatGPT directly, at least. So is it very fair? There's geopolitical reasons for it, but I like what Jason said, maybe not do anything is the better answer. We can help the economy, help, innovation thrive more that way. That's just my take.
Yeah, I guess in general with some of that stuff, and I guess along the lines with what Jason was saying, I think it was good to finally see some regulation coming out around the crypto trading side of things, and especially as Hong Kong likes to compete with Singapore, stalling of the PSA down in Singapore because of some of the effects of FTX and stuff like that. But it was good to see that Hong Kong was starting to define a lot of that, and sure they put some guardrails in and some other bits, but I think not being sort of super attached to that side of it, what I didn't like to see was a lot of the exchanges pulling out of the sandbox because they just knew that it was going to be a punitive business model based on some of the regulations around what they would have been dealing with, which kind of not what you want from the city, because obviously then they're looking at Dubai and VARA and the licensing that's there, and it's obviously a lot more easy for everyone to sort of go through that reg arbitrage play. But then to sort of answer the question you sort of said to me, but more on the corporate side, we're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place, and it's really difficult to run a business. So, we have a big cloud business where we do a lot of resell with Google Cloud. We're the premier Web3 build partner, and so a bunch of our customers are layer ones and other apps that live in a digital world, and they want to pay for their services with us through crypto. But I'm not allowed to take that crypto because there's no defined regulation that allows me to. And so when I go to my bank and talk to them about it, they're like, we'll go and get the licensing for an exchange. And I was like, I'm not an exchange though. So there's also a problem within the regulation around corporates and trying to accept payments for crypto. So,
well, let's turn to a more bright sides on the investment narrative, because now you brought up some problems and we all share a bit of frustrations, and investors want to invest in solutions and big money wants to go after big problems. So let's talk about the investment narrative in the next 24 months. Neil, from your vantage point?
Yeah, I would say, next 24 months you're talking about, a lot of people are looking at a lot of infrastructure plays. I would say, I think that's basically part and parcel of what the industry is like. Ultimately, people don't want to roll the dice on a lot of other things that are maybe more of a consumer-based approach. But I would say in that context, when you look at infrastructure, how do you actually, incorporate AI? So, when we think about it, Web3 is a little bit of a misnomer. So why do we say, when we say Web3, people immediately jump to blockchain, DLT. But inside of the web, even in 2.0, there's AI, right? But somehow we kind of lost that in the definition of what Web3 is, and everyone has kind of forgotten about that. There's certain, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, some different projects that are out there, but I think this is really where the consolidation will happen, and the value add, and ultimately maybe even the uptake, because AI obviously has taken, far shorter time to get product market fit much faster than Web3 ever has, right? So I think some way this so-called Web3 has to hitch its wagon to AI and try to deliver that type of value proposition in a very immediate sort of way, right? So I think this is super important for us going forward.
So infrastructure and AI. Jason?
So it might be ironic for me to say that due to my painful experience in my investment portfolio, but I think NFTs might make a comeback.
He didn't say that, did he?
Hate to say it, but anyway.
I'm just kidding, I'm just
everyone
joking.
knows.
No, it's coming back though.
Yeah. Oh, no, hopefully. No, I'm just thinking in the next 2 years. I think this technology is good. All right, is good. It's just that right now I think it's not mature enough. So in the next 24 months, I think it might make a comeback, but it will go beyond just arts and collectibles, right? It will, for example, like gaming will still have its audience, meaning it will still have a good opportunity investment-wise, right? Utilizing NFT technology. I think the identity verification, DID, and all that. So also fragmentization of like properties or assets. Going along with NFTs could also make an impact. I think that would go hand in hand with the RWA that we talk about. I think these two might merge and get closer together to make it a really good utility for the world. If we can find a utility, and then NFT will thrive. Now, just to add before passing on, I think another thing I think is interesting is now the AML law and KYC is so important. I think tapping into the compliance and legal expertise, kind of like Web 2 things, right? But Web 2 expertise in the Web 3 world will be paramount in the coming few years, I guess. Again, because of sort of I mentioned in the earlier answers, security and all that is important. Also, when big institutions come in, they always need these kind of legal experts to guide them to navigate through this choppy crypto scene. I think it would be important. So all the lawyers, don't worry about AI taking a job. There will be new jobs opening for you. Yeah.
Good. So you mentioned about transformation, Web 2 to Web 3. In some ways, RWA, back in the real estate days of share ownerships, right? Timeshare is kind of fractionalized, digitized, and so it's very good. That could be, you see RWA potentially a big trend. How about you, Eric?
Yeah, I agree with both what Neil and Jason said. Like what Neil said, AI has main adoption happened in 12 months or 24 months is like as fast as ever. And Web3 technically it's taking almost 10 years now. And I do agree, same as Jason, my NFT portfolio is down, but what I see is I do see AI and Web3 merge together. I think I said that earlier. Especially why is so many companies, so many founders and entrepreneurs are starting something with AI. And starting a startup is very difficult in traditional sense. They have to go to angel investors and then find series pre-seed and then seed investor to invest. But Web3 opens that up for them really easily. They can have pre-sale tokens and then tokens that are vested. You don't need a very complicated, legal structure, and you go to lawyers to fill in all your cap tables and everything. So I just see Web3 and more AI companies adopting the Web3 culture to get funding easier and to grow and get innovation faster.
So again, investment narratives. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting point actually, because I always thought that even when we went through like the ICO boom, and obviously it didn't work, but it was an interesting experiment to see the compression of the funding rounds into a very instantaneous process that then was liquid afterwards. And I think obviously as time goes on, you'll see that process I think become a little bit more mature and better. But I guess to answer the question in general, the way we look at it, because we do have a ventures arm where we do a bunch of investing, coming off the general tech boom of 2020, 2021, where you were seeing stupidly crazy multiples, where valuations were sitting 20x revenue, or you just had a PPT deck and you're asking for a huge ticket. That's obviously come down. And then I think there was obviously the lull in Web3 for a while. And obviously, as the guys have said, like AI started to boom. And so all the fast opportunistic money sort of shifted over to that side and sort of left Web3 sort of hanging out in the cold, except for people that actually truly believed in investing in the technology here. For us, obviously, we're still believers in it, so we are very much looking at it, but looking at it only at the infrastructure level, because again, we think that there's a lot of tooling that needs to be created if we're going to get the next billion people. But we are super interested in seeing use cases that mix the magic dust of Web3 and AI. And specifically when you think about things like secure data sets, so leveraging the power of a blockchain where you've got a secure, immutable data set that's being used to train an AI model is an area of intersection that we're super interested in.
Well, obviously, to solve some of the problem, you got to see a lot more startups and continue to make it and scale. So what are some of the challenges? Maybe go back to Neil, you have seen in your days looking at startups, how do they scale using blockchain? What are the roadblocks you have seen?
Challenges of using blockchain inside of startups?
Yeah, startups trying to create the solutions and Web2 companies trying to use the blockchain.
Yeah, I would say, ultimately it always comes down to product market fit. If you're able to find that type of define the problem statement, actually come up with the right solution set, and then test and learn through that POC, then of course, if you're able to find that, I think that's fantastic. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, if not the singular challenge that we've had, is that 9 times out of 10 you're just not there, and it's arguably there's more hurdles in Web3 than there are in just standard issue business, right? Because ultimately, it's just, just like think about it. If you want to go and buy crypto, before all of these ETFs and the spot ETFs came on board, is like, how do I even go into, register on Binance and, get an account, fund the account, get one of the traditional banks to fund the account, and then actually go in, buy stable coins or buy those types of tokens or whatever, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so forth. And then you have to have a wallet if you're going to go, and then if you want to go cold wallet, there's so many complexities inside of Web3 in of itself just for you to jump through those hurdles. You can just imagine by the time that you go over there, and by the way, I've got a startup that's solving a specific problem inside of your, let's say, portfolio. You only have a certain subset of users that are using that at that point. So, and then if you're not making it there and you're not finding the product market fit, then you're already kind of at a dead end, right? So you need to pivot pretty quickly, or the obviously other challenges is getting funding to continue to operate. So I think Web3 in of itself has certain challenges to overcome. It's becoming more available or more accessible through sort of like 2.0 wrappers, which are like ETFs and things like that. But ultimately, if you're trying to play inside of this Web3 space, you have to jump through a lot of different critical hoops to make that happen. So, yeah.
So in some way, you mentioned there's a subsets, and the target audience or even the market size is not as big unless you cannot just be Hong Kong or even just APAC. It has to scale globally.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at things like MetaMask, like different wallets, like what other wallets, you could say Trust Wallet, different things, right? I mean, ultimately, what's the uptake? And generally speaking, there is a significant market dominance for certain parts of the infrastructure that are there, right? And it's like an 80-20 rule. It all of a sudden drops out. Even if you look at the exchanges, Binance is by far the number one. It's just multiples bigger than others, right? So. But yeah, I think inside of Web3, there's a significantly smaller market size. There's technical challenges, regulatory challenges, far beyond that, like a traditional business or TradFi is, right?
Definitely. So for both Eric and Jason, maybe you can address a bit about the mass adoptions. To scale, you got to get secure and be in touch and actually not only penetrate, but retain the market share. So from that point of view, what are some of the challenges or solutions you see for mass adoption?
So I get the hard question. Okay. So I can speak because I originally was a builder and I went into investing, and then now I'm back building. So I have both sides of the fence. Building, it's always going to be funding. It's always going to be giving out salaries. Where are we going to give hire the best people to work on your startup. And I think that is the biggest challenge for any entrepreneur and companies there. Web3 makes it easier in some cases, like, you can list a token and then find investor easier, and an investor is not happy with you to just sell your token. But if it's a traditional startup, you have to pitch and keep pitching until you find someone that's interested, and even if that investor invests in you, they can't sell off their equity until the next round or until you get to IPO, which is really, like, it doesn't make the whole system liquid, if I say that. So Web3 makes everything more liquid, the money goes around faster and easier in my sense. So I do see more intersection with more investors going into Web3 with more regulation, with corporations. If crypto is getting more and more regulated, then I think the money and the funding should be easier, I feel. At least that's what I see right now.
So follow the money. Got to get the start with the money. How about Jason?
First of all, I do agree with what Neil says. Like, for the mass adoption to happen, I think there needs to be like better, easier tools for people who are not in Web3 to get into the Web3 world. So one thing, even personally, I've been trying to put myself into the spot of building or inventing is an easier way, better UI UX. First of all, would be a good start, right? Like the wallets and stuff, I know a lot of, so I was previously a banker, and a lot of my friends, they know finance, or they're experts in the tokenization philosophy and theory, they all understand it. They're still not getting into it because they couldn't even set up a wallet. Well, they don't have time to put in, to investigate in it, but just a simple step would stop or curb this mass adoption. So that's number one. Number two is a tough pill to swallow. So I think it's the crypto world as of today has created some obstacles for mass adoption, in a sense that a lot of quality projects turn into, for lack of a better word, crap. Like they're just not useful anymore. Even personal context, a lot, I have some friends who have like big ambition, they really have the technology, know how they're builders, they're marketers. They initially launch a project and then launch a token, right? Before the project is really productized. Usually that's what happens, right? And the money comes in so quickly, it's so lucrative that they've lost track. They're like, oh, this is so easy. I don't mean to scam people. I swear to God I don't. But money just comes in so easily. Instead of keep working on the tough way to work on the same project, can I just replicate and launch another one, right? So that deviates from the original principle of utilizing the technology. And when that happens, there are a lot of scams. And when there are a lot of scams, people will hesitate to come in. So that's just one thought.
So that's great to hear, but I'm not sure if the money is that easy these days. But let's turn the question, same question. I think there is a recurring theme about mass adoption challenge about the wallets. And let's just take the easiest, the entry gate for Dwight. The sealess wallet solution's been around for quite a while. Why doesn't it solve all the problem we just mentioned? And from an enterprise solution point of view, why hasn't it been popularized and people just start using sealess wallet and solve the whole mass adoption gateway problem?
Yeah, I think it's a lot because most of the people in the industry are tech people, and they're comfortable with the tech, they understand everything under the hood, and there's no real UX people that are coming in and sort of leveling it up. I teach a blockchain module at the HKU MBA course, and so I have a student size, probably 40, 50 students every year. And very early on in that course, I actually give an example of pulling up MetaMask, showing an NFT, and then getting onto OpenSea so you can see it. By the time I'm finished, half of them are gone. And these are already people that are interested in Web3 because they've signed up to do this module. So if we think we're even close to getting our grandma on board to this type of stuff, we're so far away from it, it's not funny.
Talk about seedless wallet, maybe for those who don't know. That could solve Would that solve the problem?
I mean, it could, and I think, like, I guess from the point of view of like us with corporates, we are in discussions with some big payments companies talking about how they might offer up a wallet that's basically custodied by them. So obviously there's no private keys that the user has to look after.
User can just use their phone, the regular ID,
Correct.
and
Yes.
without getting the whole mess about opening MetaMask,
Correct.
Everything.
So there's
all
no
the lights.
private keys, there's no public keys.
Yeah. So one same thing as you use banking right now.
Correct.
And so why hasn't that been like?
I think
mass
a lot of
adoption?
it is to do back to the regulation. You've got a lot of the corporates that we work with, it's very baby steps. Like, let's try this use case, and then let's expand on that a little bit. And it takes a long time just to get some of those use cases through. If you were to sort of open up a wallet where, like, you could put any type of token in it, it's a very long journey.
All right. Well, with the time we have, why don't we just go around and name probably 3 keywords you see as the trend? Was a lot of them been mentioned already. Let's just go to really punchy. Just say 3 keywords for the next 12 months. Or
3 keywords, okay.
Yeah.
I think the marriage between, well, that's more than 3 words. Well, yeah, I think ultimately, I think the marriage between AI and Web3 has to come a little bit closer. I mean, it takes time. I think if we take a look at the, if you really just kind of think about it, you say, you know, inside of AI, there's basically 3 basic ingredients, right? 1 is talking about the data, 2 is the models, and 3 is the compute, right? And if you think about inside of Web3, there's a ton of compute that's being used to, you know, validate a lot of the blocks inside of, let's say, Bitcoin, for example. The economic value that comes out is, what is Bitcoin today, 59 to 61, somewhere around there. That's what's pumping out. But what happens to all that compute, right? Think about how much compute is actually being used to do that. But that compute just goes out the window, right? Now, if you were able to actually somehow leverage that to, let's say, run images to validate inside of AI models and say, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is an elephant, this is a horse, would not a dual usage of that compute be much more beneficial? Number 1. Number 2 is, isn't there another business model in there? Number 3, isn't that better for the environment? Like, everybody always talks about, well, you know, yeah, Bitcoin's like, you know, this is going to be made in Texas, or this one's made in, you know, let's say coal producing, you know, XYZ country. It solves these kind of 3 different things, or 3 different problem statements that are happening out there, and I think that that's where this convergence happens, right? So,
great. Jason?
Yeah, 3 words. Probably I talk a lot about security, regulations, and collaborations. Whether it's, you know, AI, Web3 collaboration, or jurisdiction collaborating with each other or whatnot. So I think that would be the key terms.
Eric?
Oh, okay. So 3 words. 1, decentralized. 2nd, blockchain. No, sorry. Okay. I'll start again. First one is fair. 2nd one is blockchain. The last one is AI. Why fair? I think everything, you know, token-wise or, you know, money, liquidity-wise should be fair in the world. We should invest anything that we want to help support any builders that we want in, you know, the whole ecosystem. 2nd, blockchain is decentralized, so it makes everything fair. Like, AI out there is not fair. I feel, you know, if us don't have ChatGPT directly, if we don't use a VPN or a GPT wrapper, it's not fair in the world. And lastly, I think lastly is AI. So AI, I think, will eventually translate into artificial general intelligence. I think Elon Musk, like, I think, raised $6 billion to do XAI. And, you know, for us normal, like, investors, we want to invest something like that, but it's difficult. ChatGPT, I think Sam Altman just raised $156 billion or $1 million.
That's the valuation.
The valuation to do something, and as normal investors, we can't invest it. Something like, you know, I guess I'm going to talk about on my side, Qubic. We're doing like AGI too, but, you know, it's very difficult for normal people in Hong Kong to invest in us, even though it's listed. So that's my 3 words:
Great.
fair, blockchain, and AI.
Dwight?
I'm going to sit alongside Neil and talk about the adjacency of Web3 and AI. So data, compute, and reasoning. And I think, like, for us, as I said, one of the earlier questions, like, that's a really interesting space. Like, secure data sets or even private data sets attached to AI. Like, we're doing a bunch of work with a Fortune 10 company that's obviously quite big in AI, doing a whole bunch of use case and research around this intersection. And, you know, we're having ideas come out of that, like private blockchain personal data attached to AI loan recommendation engines. There's a lot of really interesting stuff at the intersection of these two spaces.
Great, thank you so much. With that, I'll give a hand applause to our panelists and speakers and for bringing the insight for the future. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, the gentlemen on stage. So let's have a good photo together. All right, so please kindly stand up and then maybe stand a little bit closer with each other. All right, please kindly stay for one more photo. All right, thank you. Oh, one more picture with a thumbs up this time. Amazing topics on the key trends and Web3s for the coming 24 months. So we're definitely learning so much more about the trends. Thank you very much, our speakers. So please kindly be seated off stage. Thank you.